My dear child, I want you to know that your journey matters more than you imagine. And while the world may try to convince you that only the final destination defines your worth, I am here to remind you that every step you take, every moment you endure, and every breath you draw is part of sacred unfolding that I have woven with care and intention, and nothing you experience, whether in joy or in sorrow, is ever wasted in the grand design of my love for you. I see the weight you sometimes carry when you look at your life and wonder whether miles you have walked mean anything. And I know how often you have compared yourself to others, believing that their progress is greater, their light brighter, their achievements more celebrated. Yet I whisper into your heart that the measure of your worth has never rested on comparison, nor has your purpose ever been diminished by what you think you lack. For your path has been crafted uniquely, and your soul's journey is unlike any other. Even in the moments when you felt overlooked, unseen, or forgotten, I have been attentive to every detail, holding your tears as treasures, listening to your sighs when no words could be spoken, and standing beside you in the silence when you thought you were walking alone. And though you may not have noticed, every valley you crossed, every trial you endured, every shadow that stretched across your way became part of the sacred shaping that is preparing you for the light that is yet to come. Do not despise the slowness of your progress, for I am not hurried in the way the world is hurried. And though your steps may seem small, they are carrying you toward places you cannot yet see, toward victories you cannot yet imagine, and toward healing you once thought impossible. Because my timing is not to frustrate you, but protect you, to teach you, and to guide you into fullness of what I know you are ready to receive. Your journey matters because within it are the lessons that refine your spirit, the encounters that awaken compassion, the struggles that strengthen resilience, and the victories that fill your heart with gratitude. And while the destination is sacred, the road itself is equally holy, for it is there, in the walking, in the pressing forward, and in the persevering through uncertainty, that you are becoming the person you were created to be. I know that sometimes you looked at the scars of your past and thought they disqualified you, that the mistakes you made or the detours you took were proof that you had ruined the path set before you. But I tell you now, not a single misstep has gone beyond my ability to redeem, and not a single failure has erased the love I hold for you. Because every part of your journey, even the broken pieces, can be gathered into a testimony of my grace, and a story of transformation that will inspire not only you but others who are watching silently from afar. There have been seasons when you cried out wondering if I heard you, when you prayed with trembling lips and heavy heart, and when you wondered why silence seemed to stretch too long. But know that in those moments, I was not absent, for silence is never the absence of my presence. Rather, is often the preparation of your spirit, the deepening of your roots, the strengthening of your foundation, so that when I answer, your heart is able to hold the weight of the blessing without being shaken. Your journey matters more than you imagine because I have chosen you not merely for survival, but for significance, not merely for wandering, but for impact. And though you may see only ordinary days, I see eternal seeds being planted. And even in the smallest act of kindness, the quietest choices of integrity, the hidden moments of faithfulness when no one applauds you, I am magnifying your influence beyond what you can perceive, weaving your journey into the lives of others in ways you will only understand fully when the veil is lifted and all is revealed. When you are weary, remember that rest is not failure. And when you feel delayed, remember that delay is not denial. And when you stumble, remember that stumbling is not the end. For I delight in lifting you when you fall, in steadying your hands when they tremble, and in breathing hope into you when you feel the flame is almost gone. And it is in those very moments of weakness that my strength shines brightest. For your journey is not sustained by your power alone, but by my unwavering presence. With you, every sunrise you witness is a reminder that your journey continues with new mercies. Every breath in your lungs is proof that I still have purpose for you, and every beat of your heart is a rhythm echoing my eternal love. So do not believe the lie that your story is small, that your path is meaningless, or that your steps are wasted, because I, who created you, delight in you, and I walk beside you in every chapter of your unfolding. My beloved child, there are moments when you pause and question whether all that you have endured carries any meaning at all, and I want you to rest in the certainty that nothing in your life has been wasted, not the seasons of joy, not the hours of tears, not the nights when you lay awake wrestling with fears too heavy to name, because all of it has been gathered into my hands, and I have been weaving it into a story far greater than the fragments you see before you now. You may think the quiet years, the overlooked efforts, the forgotten dreams where losses at time is stolen. Yet I remind you that I am the keeper time, and I redeem what appears wasted, transforming delay into preparation and disappointment into fertile ground for the seeds of new beginnings. And though you may not yet perceive it, what you call detours are often the very roads that carry you closer to the destiny I have written for you. Your journey matters more than you imagine because every step has carried you into deeper awareness of who you are and who I am. And though the road has not always been smooth, the rough places have taught you endurance. The dark valleys have taught you faith. And the mountains you climb with trembling strength have shown you that courage often appears not as loud triumph, but as quiet persistence to keep going when everything within you feels weary. I have seen you when you tried to measure your worth by the standards of others, when you looked at their progress and felt small, when you compared your beginning to someone else's middle, and when you wondered if your pace was too slow to matter. But I tell you now, my child, comparison blinds you to the beauty of your own path. For no two journeys are ever meant to be identical. And I did not create you to walk another's road, but to walk faithfully the one placed beneath your feet, a road that has been uniquely tailored for your soul's growth and your spirit's calling. I know there are times you think back to choices you regret, words you wish you had never spoken, moments where you feel you failed too greatly to recover. But I remind you that grace is not limited by your mistakes, nor is my love withheld because of your imperfections. For my delight in you is not conditional upon flawless steps, and my embrace does not retreat when you stumble, but instead, I draw closer, offering strength, forgiveness, and renewal, so that even what was once broken can shine with the beauty of redemption. Your journey matters because I have walked every mile beside you, unseen at times, silent in moments, but always present. And I was a calm in the storm you could not name, the whisper of hope when despair grew heavy, and the gentle hand steadying you when fear threatened to overwhelm. And though you may have thought you were alone, I assure you, not once have I abandoned you, not once have I turned away, and not once have I grown weary of walking with you through the wilderness of your becoming. Do not think that your worth lies only in the grand milestones or the celebrated victories, for I see holiness in the smallest acts you hardly notice. The way you offer kindness when your own heart aches, the way you hold hope for others when you feel little for yourself, the way you continue showing up even when you feel invisible, for these hidden moments shine like jewels in my sight, and they ripple outward in ways you will one day see with clarity, when all that is hidden is revealed. Your journey matters more than you imagine because I have planted within you gifts that unfold not all at once but over time. And just as a seed does not reveal its strength until it breaks open in the darkness of soil, so too will your potential rise through seasons of waiting, pressing, and stretching until what seems small and hidden grows into something abundant and unshakable. And in that moment, you will understand that the waiting was never wasted, but necessary for the roots to grow deep. I have watched you carry questions heavy with longing. Questions about your future, your worth, your purpose. And though answers have not always come the timing you wished, know that the waiting itself has shaped you, teaching you patience, humility, and dependence. And though you may grow weary of unanswered prayers, my delays are not denials, and my silence is not rejection, but rather an invitation to trust that I am still working even when you cannot see it, and that I am arranging details far beyond your understanding for a greater good you will one day recognize. The world often teaches you to race, to hurry, to measure your worth by constant productivity. But I invite you instead into rest, into trust, into a slower rhythm where you understand that life is not about proving yourself, but about walking with me in faithfulness. For your value is not in what you achieve, but in who you are becoming. And who you are becoming is someone stronger, wiser, and more radiant with love than you have yet imagined. So, when doubts rise and fears whisper that you are not enough, remember that I called you beloved before you took your first breath, that I delighted in you before you ever achieved a thing, and that I chose you not because of your perfection, but because of my love, a love that cannot be measured, diminished, or withdrawn. And it is this love that has carried you this far and will continue carrying you into the days ahead. My beloved child, as you walk through the winding roads of your existence, I want you to remember that no step you take is ever overlooked. For I see not only where you are going, but also the posture of your heart as you move forward. And though you may feel weary, doubting whether your steps are enough, I assure you that every single movement toward growth, toward faith, toward love, matters deeply, because I treasure even the smallest effort that brings you closer to the fullness of who I created you to be. There are seasons when your path feels uncertain, when the fog of confusion blinds you to the next step, and when fear whispers that perhaps you have strayed too far. Yet I am the lamp at your feet, the one who gently lights the way before you, not always with the clarity of the entire road, but with enough illumination for you to take the next faithful step. And as you walk, the way becomes clearer because my guidance is always present even when it is subtle. Your journey matters more than you imagine, because it is not only your own soul being shaped, but also the lives of those who witness your perseverance, those who watch you rise after falling, those who are quietly inspired by your unseen acts of courage. And though you may not know their names or hear their applause, the light of your endurance is rippling outward, touching hearts in ways you cannot yet measure. And one day, you will understand the impact you had simply by choosing to continue, walking when quitting felt easier. I have seen you pause at crossroads, unsure which way to turn, afraid of choosing wrongly. But I want you to know that even when your steps are uncertain, I am able to redirect, to reshape, to bring beauty out of decisions that felt broken. For I am not limited by your hesitation or mistakes, and my grace is wide enough to cover every road you have walked, even those you thought were wasted, because nothing is beyond my power to redeem. When you feel forgotten, remember that I am mindful of you always, not occasionally, not when you achieve something, not when you pray perfectly, but at every moment. I hold you in my awareness, for you are never lost in the crowd of creation, never a background figure in my story, but always a beloved child whose name I carry close to my heart. And this is why your journey matters, because I see you in full, and I delight in every chapter of your becoming. I know that some days you carry hidden sorrow, the kind that you tuck deep within your soul, the kind that others cannot see. And in those moments when you feel unseen, I want you to know that I've counted every tear, that I am attentive to every unspoken ache, and that I am closer than your very breath, gently reminding you that no sorrow is too small to matter, no wound too hidden for me to heal, and no burden too heavy for me to lift from your shoulders. Your journey matters not because it is flawless, but because it is authentic. And I do not ask you to present me with perfection, but with honesty. For I welcome you in your doubts as much as in your faith, in your weakness as much as in your strength, and in your questions as much as in your certainty. And it is in this openness that transformation occurs, not because you have earned it, but because my love is unending and my patience toward you is infinite. The world may try to measure success by outward progress, by visible achievements, by accolades and recognition. But I measure your journey by the condition of your heart, by the moments you choose compassion instead of bitterness, by the times you choose hope instead of despair, and by the quiet faith that keeps you moving forward even when circumstances tempt you to give up. And in this, your journey holds immeasurable worth, because it is the shaping of your spirit that matters more than any trophy, title, or applause. I know you have sometimes wondered whether your prayers are enough, whether your faith is too small, whether your efforts go unnoticed. But I want you to release those doubts, for I do not weigh your worth by the magnitude of your accomplishments, but by the sincerity of your heart. And even the smallest prayer, whispered through trembling lips, reaches me like a fragrance, carrying more weight than you realize. For I am not impressed by grand displays, but moved by authentic love and trust. Your journey matters more than you imagine, because it has been written with eternal significance. And though the world may only see fragments, I see the full picture, the beginning, the end, the victories and the struggles. And I know that what looks like unfinished chapters to you are threads I am weaving into a tapestry of beauty, where every strand has purpose, even those woven in tears, even those tinged with regret. For nothing is beyond my ability to use for good. So when you grow weary of waiting, when you are tempted to believe the lie that you are behind, when you fear that your steps are too small to matter, return to this truth. Your journey is not a race to be won, but a sacred walk with me. And in every breath, in every choice, in every moment, you're living out a story that holds infinite value, a story I delight to write with you, and a story that carries meaning far greater than you can presently see. My beloved child, let me tell you again, your journey matters more than you can comprehend. Because every moment of your life is not only about where you're going, but about what is happening within you as you move forward. And while the world looks at outcomes, at accomplishments, at external signs of success, I look deeper into the chambers of your heart, into the resilience that grows when you refuse to give up, into the compassion that awakens when you have suffered and learned to understand the pain of others, into the wisdom that rises slowly and quietly as you walk through trials that no one else may see. You often wonder the things you carry within you, the doubts, the broken dreams, the disappointments, the longings that never seem to find fulfillment. Somehow diminish your worth. Yet I assure you, they do not lessen who you are. For I see those very things as sacred material through which your soul is refined. And though you may feel weak, I see strength forming in hidden places. And though you may feel uncertain, I see a faith being birthed that will one day anchor you in storms you cannot. Yet imagine surviving. I have walked with you through every season, through laughter and through tears, through the warmth of community and the silence of loneliness, through the confidence of victories and the trembling of failures. And in each place I have never been absent, though sometimes you mistook my quietness as distance. And I want you to know now that silence was not my absence, but the way I drew you deeper into trust, into patience, into the recognition that not everything must be answered immediately. For some answers require the slow unfolding of time, and some revelations are too weighty to be given all at once. Your journey matters because it is not a random sequence of events, but a carefully woven story where even the threads you thought were broken are part of a greater design. And while you look at the knots and tangles, I see the finished tapestry. And though you may only see fragments, I see the beauty of the whole. And I promise you, when the time comes, you'll look back and marvel at how even the darkest nights carried within them the seeds of dawn, and how even the deepest wounds became openings through which light entered your soul. You may not believe this now, but the very struggles you wish you could erase are often the ones shaping you most profoundly. For struggle carves humility, suffering awakens empathy, and waiting teaches trust. And while you desire quick answers, instant relief, immediate clarity, I know that some things must take root slowly, that deep transformation requires time, and that your journey cannot be rushed if it is to bear lasting fruit. I see you when you feel lost, when the road bends and you cannot see what lies ahead, when you question whether you are still on the right path. And in those moments, I whisper to you that even when you do not know where you are going, I do. And even when you feel directionless, I am guiding you with a hand that never trembles. And even when you feel too weary to keep walking, I am carrying you. And in this you can rest, for you are never truly lost when you are held in me. Your journey matters because it is not only about you. For I am using your life to touch others in ways you may never fully know. And every word of encouragement you spoke, every act of kindness you gave, every prayer you lifted on behalf of someone else, became part of a ripple effect that extends far beyond your sight. And one day, you'll see how even your hidden faithfulness became light for others walking in shadows, how even your quiet strength gave hope to hearts you never met. There will be times when others fail to recognize your value, when they overlook your efforts, when they dismiss your dreams, when they underestimate your worth. But their blindness does not change who you are to me, for my gaze upon you is unwavering, my delight in you unchanging, and my affirmation deeper than any human praise. And it is in me that your identity rests, not in the shifting opinions of those around you. My beloved child, do not mistake the stillness between seasons for neglect. For I am always at work even when you cannot perceive the motion of my hand. And though the pauses in your story may feel like empty spaces where nothing is growing, I assure you that beneath the surface of those quiet days, deep and unseen labor is taking place. Roots are strengthening into soil. Character is being formed in the slow, steady way that only time and faithful endurance can accomplish. And when the moment for growth arrives, you will stand astonished at how richly equipped you are to receive what has been preparing you all along. Remember that your journey matters precisely because it is a narrative of becoming, and becoming rarely follows the neat patterns of human expectation. For it is an inner transformation that often stretches you more than it comforts you, that chisels away what is not needed and reveals what is essential. And though you prefer certainty and ease, know that the deeper work is rarely comfortable, for it moves you beyond superficial measures into marrow what is true and lasting, refining your capacity to love, to forgive, to hope, and to serve in ways the easier path would never permit. You have been given more than mere existence. You've been entrusted with a life that carries significance in ways both visible and invisible, and as you walk, I am arranging encounters, providences, and circumstances with a wisdom that surpasses your understanding, so that those moments when doors appear closed may be steering you toward a place more aligned with your truest calling. And those moments of seeming failure are often the very chisels that carve a more resilient heart, that teach. you humility and grace, and that prepare you for responsibilities you would otherwise be overwhelmed by had they come sooner. Do not be quick to diminish your past nor to minimize your present. For I take the very ordinary clay of your days and mold it into a vessel of uncommon capacity. And sometimes the most sacred conversions happen not in grand, spectacular revelations, but in the quiet. Repeated choices to hope when despair pressed close, to forgive when bitterness tempted, to speak truth when easier lies would have spared discomfort, and to love vulnerably when fear argued for safety. And it is these ordinary, faithful acts that accumulate into a life of weight and meaning more profound than the loud accolades of the world. I know you have carried shame about things you regret, and I know how shame can settle like a heavy cloak that distorts the way you see yourself in the world. But hear me now. Shame is not the final word over your life, nor is it evidence that you are disqualified from purpose or from being loved. For I have not counted your failures as greater than my capacity to redeem. And even the deepest stains of regret can be washed in the tide of my mercy, transformed into testimony, and used to bring compassion to others who tremble under similar burdens. And therefore your healed scars will one day be not only your marks of survival, but conduits of empathy for those who can hardly imagine hope. Do not be dismayed by seasons of loneliness, for even in the solitude you are never truly alone, and solitude is often the soil in which a more intimate relationship with me grows, where the distractions fall away and your heart learns to listen. And in that listening, you are being reformed into someone who can hold love without fear, can give without expectation, and can lead without arrogance because you have learned dependence, humility, and the quiet power that comes from being known and still being accepted fully. You may think your struggles are private and your pains are relevant to the wider world, but I tell you plainly that your journey matters in the grand economy of meaning, because your endurance becomes an invisible currency that not only blesses your own becoming but fortifies the courage of others who draw strength from the example of your perseverance. And the prayers you have whispered when no one watched ripple through unseen realms in ways that ultimately shift realities around you, so that even what seems private is part of a network of grace extending far beyond what you can presently measure. When you are tempted to chase the world's definition of success, to measure your life in likes, in salaries, in trophies and titles, return to the truth I have spoken into your spirit. Success is not a tally of external achievements, but the formation of character, the capacity to love without counting cost, the willingness to offer oneself for the well-being of others, and the courage to remain tender in a world that often demands hardness, and though the world may praise those who win loud. Applause. I celebrate those who become courageous in their compassion, steadfast in their faith, and humble in their power. There will come days when doubt will press close and fear will attempt to define your future by transient circumstances, when you'll be tempted to trade your calling for comfort or to numb the ache of longing with temporary pleasures. Yet do not surrender to these lies, for the truest fulfillment is not found in escape, but in faithful endurance. And often the doorway to the life you were meant to live opens only after you have refused the easier path and stood in the vulnerability of trusting me with the long, slow work. And when the door opens, you will recognize that the sacrifices were not losses, but investments into the maturity of your soul. Your journey matters because it is a story that will one day be told, not for your vanity, but for the purpose of encouraging others. And when you look back, you'll discover how intricately my hand guided even the smallest details, how people who seemed incidental were placed like pieces on a chessboard for a time precisely necessary, and how the chapters that confused you the most were the very ones that prepared you to steward grace and mercy in ways that would honor what you had learned in suffering, so that your testimony becomes an instrument of healing for those who come after. Let go of the idea that your worth is tied to performance, for you are not alleged to be balanced, but a beloved child whose identity is rooted in relationship. And the more you internalize this, the freer you will become to take risks for love, to extend forgiveness without bargaining for an equivalent return, and live vulnerably enough to bear witness to the struggles of others with genuine empathy. For identity rooted in relationship produces a generosity of spirit that achievement alone never births. When you stumble and the ground seems slippery beneath your feet, remember that stumbling is part of the pilgrimage of growth, that the stumbling itself does not mark the end of your story, but the middle of it. And when you reach for my hand, you will find steadiness, instruction, and a direction to rise again, for compassionate strength is not refusing to fall, but learning to rise with grace And this rising will etch into your heart a humility that becomes a cornerstone of wisdom. Do not fear the seasons of pruning, when I allow difficult choices or painful discernments to remove what makes you comfortable but not fruitful. For pruning is a gardener's discipline that shapes branches into positions that will bear more fruit and more life. And though pruning can feel like loss, it is, in truth, a form of divine investment, preparing you to carry greater abundance and more resilient beauty into future seasons. And so give thanks even in pruning, trusting that the sacrifice is for your flourishing. Your journey matters because love is being formed in you that will outlast all temporary pleasures, and the love you cultivate in patient fidelity will have a generational effect. It will heal relationships neglected for years. It will shape the children who follow you and will create cultures of kindness where bitterness might otherwise have taken root. And never underestimate how your small act of faithfulness can break cycles of pain and propagate hope into corners of life that have grown dark from neglect. When anxiety tightens its grip and the future seems like a cliff you might fall from, anchor your heart in the simple truth of presence. Breathe, feel, and remember that each breath is evidence of my sustaining care, that each heartbeat is a small rehearsal of the greater life I am stewarding for you, and that one step at a time, taken even with trembling courage, is enough. For I do not call you to conquer the mountain in one stride, but to walk faithfully and steadily until you stand on the summit and see how every step mattered. You may feel that your voice is too small to matter in a world filled with loudness. I assure you that the softest voice can carry the most weight when it speaks truth and love. And often the voices that change hearts are not the ones with the largest platforms, but the ones that insist on telling the truth with gentleness, courage, and integrity. And so, do not silence your small voice because it seems insignificant. For in the hands of the one who counts stars, that small voice can shift the course of many lives. Do not neglect the sacredness of ordinary things, the meals you prepare with intention, the patient listening you offer to someone who needs to be heard, the disciplined work you do day after day, the prayers you lift in quiet. For these ordinary things are the fabric of a life that matters, the steady threads that weave a tapestry of faithfulness. And when you look back, you will recognize that what sustained you and others was not the dramatic moment alone, but the accumulation of ordinary acts done out of love. Remember also that grief is not a detour from your story, but an integral chapter that deepens the quality of your love and widens the compassion of your soul. And though grief is heavy and often feels endless, I am present within it, carrying you, teaching you to hold both sorrow and hope, and forming in you a tenderness that will make you capable of great mercy and understanding. So do not avoid grief, but allow it be a crucible where empathy is refined and where your heart learns to hold others more gently. When you are tempted to hurry the healing, to demand that wounds close on your timetable, remember that healing is an art that requires patience, that scars are their own stories they need to tell, and that rushing recovery often impedes the fuller restoration that comes when wounds are acknowledged, tended, and allowed to teach you humility and gratitude. And in that slower healing, you find a deeper resilience that no quick fix could deliver. Let your life be marked by a steady courage that chooses love over fear again and again. For courage is less the absence of fear than the decision to act in spite of it. And each time you choose to love when you would rather withdraw, to forgive when bitterness seems justified, and to hope when despair whispers louder, you cultivate a fortitude that becomes a light for others and an anchor for your own soul. And in this cultivated courage, your journey becomes an instrument of transformation. Do not be surprised when doors open in seemingly unlikely places, when relationships are restored, when opportunities appear that you could not have envisioned. For I am in the business of surprising you with grace, and often those surprises come precisely as a result of patient faithfulness. So continue to steward the gifts before you, continue in integrity, and continue to show up even when recognition delays, because miracles often arrive on the heels of persistent obedience and quiet devotion. Surrender is not a sign of weakness, but an act of deep wisdom. And when you surrender control, not by giving up, but by trusting that there's a benevolent author of your narrative, you free yourself from the exhausting burden of managing every outcome. And in that surrender, you find creativity, joy, and a freshness of spirit that have been obscured by the illusion of self-sufficiency. So practice surrender as a daily discipline, releasing the need to predict and instead learning to co-labor with the one who knows the end from the beginning. Your journey matters because you will be surprised at how often your testimony, your small acts of faith, your quiet endurance, and your consistent kindness will become the turning points in other people's lives, even when you do not see the immediate fruit. And sometimes the most significant influence you will have is not announced or measured publicly, but is experienced deeply and privately by those whose burdens you made lighter. As you continue to walk, cultivate gratitude as an attitude and prayer as a habit. For gratitude tunes your heart to recognize blessings even in the midst of difficulty, and prayer keeps you aligned with the source of wisdom and comfort. And together, these practices form a rhythm that sustains you through storms, grounds you in perspective during success, and keeps you tethered to hope when days feel dim. And from this steady rhythm flows a life that matters in ways both profound and enduring. Do not fear seasons of waiting, for waiting is not a punishment but a form of maturation. And though waiting can be difficult to bear, it often precedes a harvest that cannot have been supported by hurried preparation. And so embrace waiting as an active posture of faith, one that trusts, that prays, that prepares, and that remains faithful even when answers are delayed, knowing that the patience you cultivate now will be the strength that steadies you when blessings finally arrive. Never forget the power of small, faithful beginnings. For almost every great story of transformation began with something humble and seemingly insignificant. A seed planted, a word spoken in love, a single act of courage, a small step toward reconciliation. And so, do not despise small starts, for they are the soil of monumental change. And the perseverance you show at the outset is often what determines whether the tiny beginning will grow into a glorious harvest. When others fail to see your progress, when their words sting and their judgments fall, do not allow those external voices to dictate the value of your journey. For your worth is not established by applause, but by the one who formed you. And the affirmation you most need is a quiet, steady reminder from that love that you are known, you are held, and you are being formed. And when you stand in that truth, criticisms and misconceptions lose their power to define you. Take care of your soul as you would tend a sacred garden. For the soil of your inner life must be nourished with rest, with truth, with companionship, and with practices that cultivate wholeness. And when you protect the rhythms that restore you, your journey will have a resilience to endure seasons of testing, and the fruit of your life will reflect not merely activity but health, depth, and sustained beauty. Be a steward of kindness in a world that often rewards hardness, and remember that tenderness is not weakness, but a strength of spirit that chooses love in the face of brutality, and tenderness done faithfully. Small acts of care, consistent compassion, and persistent patience changes atmospheres, softens hearts, and opens doors of reconciliation that force alone never could. Let hope anchor you when circumstances threaten to unmoor your faith. For hope is a quiet, steadfast trust that the long arc of your story is guided by a wisdom that sees beyond present troubles, and hope transforms waiting into expectation, despair into possibility, and fatigue into a sustained readiness to receive the unfolding grace that is already being prepared for you. Do not be discouraged when the path requires recalibration, when plans must be revised, or when your dreams must be adjusted to match deeper realities. For recalibration is not defeat, but a sign of maturity, a willingness to align your will with a wiser vision. And in the humility of recalibration, you discover freedom to reimagine your purpose with clarity and renewed integrity. Teach those who come after you not merely by proclamation, but by demonstration. For character is most persuasive when practiced, and the legacy you leave will be formed less by words and more by the steady faithfulness of a life lived in service, in love, and in surrender. And when your children or students or those you mentor see you keep faith through storms, they learn a courage that lectures cannot provide. Remember that forgiveness is a continual grace to extend, not a one-time transaction that erases memory, but a transformative posture that releases the grip of bitterness, opens your hands to gentler living, and creates space for renewed relationship. And in extending forgiveness, you free yourself to walk lighter, to love more readily, and to experience the liberating joy of reconciliation. When you look at the horizon and wonder what tomorrow will hold, know that my presence with you makes the future not something to fear, but something to anticipate with a quiet confidence. And though you cannot see all that lies ahead, you can walk forward with steady steps, because you are not moving alone, and each step taken in faith aligns you with a larger story unfolding for your good and for the good of many. So press on, beloved child, not because you must prove anything to anyone, but because you are invited into a life of meaning, and because every breath you take, every act of courage you make, and every choice of love in the face of difficulty stitches your story into the fabric of an unfolding redemption that matters beyond measure. And when your days are counted and your steps are reviewed, you will see that nothing was wasted, that every moment bore witness to a purpose greater than momentary comfort, and that your journey did indeed matter more than you had ever imagined. Return often to this quiet place of assurance. Let these words wash over your doubts and sail into the future with the knowledge that you are seen, that you are chosen, and that your life is being used in ways both intimate and wide. And may the certainty of this truth steady your heart. Your journey matters more than you imagine, and I am with you, always steadfastly, and always writing beauty into the margins of your days.